When life throws you a curveball, how are you going to handle adversity? Welcome to the Fearless Mindset Podcast, where you're about to go on a journey as I interview security, business, and entertainment leaders on what it takes to stay fearless. I'm your host, Mark Ledlow, and enjoy today's episode. Hello, everybody. This is Mark Ledlow with the Fearless Mindset Podcast, and today I have the honor and privilege of having John Shuman with us from U.S. Bank there in Minneapolis, Minnesota, the Chief Security Officer over there in the banking world. And thank you, sir, for your time and coming on the show.
No, Mark, it's my pleasure, and look forward to our conversation. Thank you.
You bet. Yeah, we were just offline a minute ago, and you had a good track thought in your mind about MMA and bodyguards and customer service. Go into that again.
Yeah, I talked a little bit about this in Las Vegas when I had the honor to speak at the conference there a while back. The thing that I try to sort of reinforce, drumbeat message to a lot of folks that are coming out of the military, coming out of law enforcement, coming out of some of the other industries, and they want to get into the private sector and maybe into the executive protection / executive services business. Really go into it with the mindset that you absolutely need to be a diplomat and not a door kicker. You might have been just a terrific door kicker in your previous profession. And those hard skills, if ever called upon, will serve you well in your next role. But it's really important to remember that as you become part of an executive protection or executive services program at a private sector company, your skills in diplomacy, your skills in influencing without authority, which is a really important skill and a difficult one, right, for folks coming out of law enforcement and some of those other professions. Your skills and your abilities to forge relationships, build trust, not only with clients, but with peers and with other key stakeholders at that company. Those diplomacy skills, that's going to be the lion's share of what your job entails. And if you want to be successful at that job, those are the critical skills to have, much more so than sort of your quote door kicker skills, which are still important, and you still want to train and you still want to keep those types of skills honed, but you do not want to give off the persona of a door kicker in a private Fortune 500 company. It will not be received well. You really want to be perceived as that quiet, thoughtful, trustworthy professional who gets the job done and has those diplomacy skills and those relationships.
So, John, to go to that, so in the sales world, they always say less is more. I've always heard that. I don't know how long I've heard that phrase. So does that apply? The less you talk, if you're perceived as a bodyguard in the corporate world, let's say U.S. Bank, you're more respected because your role there is to be a protector and protect corporate shareholders' interests and the bank's interests. Would that be applicable to that too?
Yeah, you know what? Terrific topic, Mark. And I'd like to address the whole idea of bodyguard right off the bat, right?
Please do.
At U.S. Bank or any program that I've been a part of or designing, one of the absolute key deliverables is to design a program and design the jobs that support that program to be much more than just your sort of quote unquote bodyguard. We want to establish long-term trusting relationships, not only with your C-suite people, but the bevy of key stakeholders and peers that you're going to be working with day in and day out. So if you look at the folks that are on my executive services team here at the bank, they provide physical security support. They provide training. They create intelligence reports. They provide briefings on trips. They provide a lot of other, different types of services. They, perform and have relationships with the residential staffs of our C-suite executives, the families, the children, the spouses. So it's much more than sort of a bodyguard, if you will. It's really we want to be thought of as a trusted advisor. And when the topic where they need, our advice, or they need our leadership, or they need our direction, I want to be able to send in my team to engage with them at a C-suite level and provide that type of trusted guidance. So we really think of an executive protection specialist or an executive service specialist as a holistic type role here at the bank. And, we hire people with a high degree of maturity. And if we bring in some fresh new talent, we certainly make sure that we have a control environment, kind of an on-the-job training, to make sure that we empower that person, we set that person up for success. But because of that program, or because we hire a very high caliber, high degree of maturity kind of individual to come in here, I have just tremendous trust in my folks, and they know exactly when to step in and speak up, or when to step back and not engage, right? And there's an art to what we do. There's a balance point to understanding when you need to step forward and provide that direction and that leadership, and when you need to step back and allow others to do that, or let things kind of play out. So I would say that the bodyguard part of the pie is a very, very small piece. We make sure that the guys are highly trained in all of the disciplines around the profession. But I got to tell you, there are so many other components that we build and have our program kind of foundationally constructed on, in addition to that one piece.
Wow. That was a lot of gold nuggets right there for everybody listening and watching that want to jump into corporate roles. Right now, everybody's sitting around. As you know, there's not much movement because of COVID-19. Everybody's been grounded to their homes, and they got the teams around the home protecting those C-suite level and above. And I think the big question is, a lot of people are thinking to themselves, watching this and listening, is, well, how do I apply? What buzzwords do I use? I mean, I've seen protective management. I've heard different names that they're using now versus executive protection or bodyguard or protector or whatever you call it. What is those buzzwords in the corporate arena that like you guys use, like if somebody wanted to apply it with the role with your organization?
Yeah, I think that the nice thing about the world that we live in today, right, is that technology is so fast and it's so accurate, and there are so many things out there that can help someone do a query or do a job search, right? I think that you need to kind of begin with the end in mind. And what I mean by that is figure out what type of an industry you think you would be most successful in, because the industries are very different. Retail is very different than oil and gas. Sports and entertainment is very different than banking. Tech is very different than defense. And so figure out what industry are you passionate about? Because you've got to remember that the executive services team, the executive protection team, is like all of the other entities at that company. Your goal has to be supporting and helping that company in its mission. You need to understand what makes that company tick. How is that company profitable? How is that company successful? And what part is your team and what you do going to fit into that end? And so figure out what industry you're in. You leverage technology, leverage networks, leverage professional organizations and groups to find out the companies within that industry and where they're located in the country. Once you do that, dig in and go to those websites, with a few keyword searches, and you can always, executive support, executive protection, executive services. There's a number of different, keyword searches you can do. You can find, a lot of jobs. You can go to LinkedIn, Indeed. There's so many forums now where you can do that. And then once you do that, what I would do is really prepare a really good resume, a really good cover letter, reach out to the HR recruiters that are responsible for filling those roles, send those recruiters your paperwork. There's nothing wrong with, leaning forward a little bit and being not overly aggressive, but ambitious. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Getting your paperwork out there. See if, I attend a couple of Midwest and Twin Cities based networking organizational groups with some of my peers, right? See if you can get yourself invited to some of those meetings, or if there are presentations or conferences, get to those. Bring some resumes, bring some cover letters with you. Market yourself a little bit, and then when those recruiters receive that, be ready to answer their questions. Be reasonable about what a starting salary and some other duties might look like at a company. And then I think the more you do that, I think that trying to break into this industry, you'll get there. It just takes time, perseverance, a little sweat, and some ambition.
Well, thanks for the tips on how to get recruited. Those are valuable tips, especially with everybody sitting at home, trying to do reach out through Facebook private groups and, hey, who's got work out there during the COVID-19 thing and the quarantine thing. I hear a lot of people, hey, you got anything out there? I'm like, no, it's quiet out there. Wait till after the elections, things maybe get a little hectic. To add to what you're saying, I've been hearing a lot of corporations are creating their own embedded teams versus getting vendors to bring vendors in because the cost effectiveness and insurance issues. Is that kind of the new norm in the corporate arena, is where they want embedded teams versus outsourcing and bringing out vendors in to support different events and stuff like that? Is that kind of what you're hearing out there?
Yeah, it's a great question, Mark. I think, what we typically do here at the bank is that, I always will have my own internal physical security folks, executive service folks. They will always be the ones designing and constructing our security plans, whether it's an international trip, domestic trip, large meeting, board of director meeting, shareholder meeting, that type of thing. But certainly then we have third-party contracts with several vendor groups that then we bring in to supplement that. But I think the important thing is you don't ever want to just let go of the control of that to solely a third party. You have got to make sure that your folks who have the best understanding of your company's reputation and brand, they've always got to be the ones with the oversight. They've got to be the ones that are client-facing and employee-facing with regard to the event. Because if something goes wrong, that third party is not going to be held accountable. The corporate security team, or whoever was in charge of doing that, really, should be the ones that are standing tall, making sure that things don't happen like that. So I would say, my suggestion would be, there's nothing wrong with third-party vendors. We have lots of them. They provide currency transport for us, robbery prevention, armed support, unarmed support, and a number of other security-related activities, products and services. But at the end of the day, I always want to have someone from my team with the ultimate accountability, oversight, and authority over that project and over the third-party vendors that are helping us with that project.
To maintain that quality of product and service, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know it's no hidden mystery. You guys have been ground zero with everything going on in Minneapolis, Minnesota. How has U.S. Bank been handling all the issues and the civil unrest? I mean, that must be a major project for you, being the head of security over there.
Yeah, I mean, we've really had some unprecedented times here, right? You take the stress of COVID, you pair that with the stress of some of the protest and civil unrest that's going on around the country. And then, the trifecta, we've got quite an interesting election coming up. It's been quite an interesting campaign. And so you kind of take all three of those things, you put them together, and it makes for some unprecedented times, especially from a security perspective. We tend to, our methodology and how we approach all of that is very similar. So we do a very thorough, detailed analysis across the country and internationally every day of potential hotspots. When we find a hotspot, we dig in and we want to learn more about it. who are the players, what's the problem, what's the issue, the scope, the scale, potential severity, that type of thing. Then we apply our retail or non-retail overlay footprint on top of it. Because we try to then calculate out what's the potential U.S. Bank impact to our operations. If we feel there's going to be impact, we immediately engage that market leadership and other key stakeholders like our crisis management, business continuity, corporate communications, corporate real estate, et cetera. We might also bring in some external partners like law enforcement, security, some of the other folks that we might need to. Because then, of course, when we understand what the problem is, we understand the size, the scale of the problem, and then we're able to calculate what we think the impact to our operations might be. Then, of course, we build our security recommendations to the market leadership based on those types of criteria. And we use that process, whether it's election-related protest activity, civil unrest, officer-involved shooting, protest-related activity, COVID-related financial stress-related activity. We kind of try to work that process the same way. But at the end of the day, it's really important to proactively get that information to market leaders so they can make informed decisions about what they want to do. Whether it's closing facilities early, whether it's closing facilities entirely, whether it's adding guards, whether it's proactively pulling currency, whether it is hardening up a site by proactively boarding it or some other type of physical security measure. But you've got to get that information to market leaders early so we can proactively make the decision. And the number one goal here is we want to keep our employees, our contractors, and our customers safe. And that's what we're committed to doing.
Sounds like you guys are ready, because it sounds like you grab the intel piece, you grab that piece, look at that puzzle and the matrix on that intel, and then you deploy instead of being a knee-jerk reaction, which is probably what you did in the Secret Service: intel and then deploy.
Yeah, Mark, I apologize. I'm suddenly having audio problems hearing you.
Huh. Test. Okay. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you better now, yeah.
Oh, interesting. I just moved my mouse on the Zoom part.
Yeah, if you could just please repeat the last question. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, no problem. It seems like from what you're just explaining there is you take the intel package of your organization, instead of being a knee-jerk reaction, you get the intel, then you deploy assets where need be based on those intel threats.
Yeah, correct. We absolutely try to be in a proactive posture anytime we possibly can. Does it mean that we'll never have to react to something that sort of a matched gas type incident that flashes and we've got to deal with it? Certainly we're dealing with that all the time, but wherever and whenever we can be proactive, certainly that's the preferred course of action.
Hey, John, I don't want to touch on I'm not going to do anything crazy on this discussion, but everybody's been talking about Denver, Colorado, the bear spray versus the guy with the gun. And what has your organization done to better vet going forward that those type of things don't happen? I'm sure everybody's talking about that in all the banks and all the CSOs and different organizations. What's the discussion on that issue? Has that been really talked about at that level?
I think, and admittedly, I guess I haven't read a ton on the issue in Denver, but I think if you're talking about use of force,
right?
I think that, so here's the position we have at the bank, right? So we have a policy, a use of force policy that is approved annually at the C-suite level. That use of force policy incorporates all third-party vendors that we may bring aboard to help us with something who are armed and may have to take action on behalf of the bank. So it starts with having a really good policy that is official and approved at the top level of an organization's policy approval process. Then we our third-party vendor vetting system is extremely robust. Meaning, if you want to do business with us, we are going to spend a meticulous 3 or 4 months ensuring that your company has all of the training, the licenses, no reputational issues, no pending litigation. You got the proper insurance, everything to put us in the best possible position of, if we certify you, we decide to start doing business with you, we want to make sure that we have done all of our homework, so that we've minimized the chances of something being missed. And if there is an incident, in addition to the harm that the incident itself causes, there's potentially reputational harm to us for that relationship. So it's really important to be proactive in that respect. Then, again, you always begin with the end in mind. We always want to make sure that if one of my employees or one of our third-party folks acting on behalf of our organization in support of one of our activities or some of our business, if they take some type of action, right, we want to make sure that when we open the books and independent folks come in to review and audit and scrutinize, investigate everything leading up to that action, we want to make sure the training logs are there, the mastery of a approved course of fire or an approved use of force class is there. We can evidence all of that. And I think you try to get as many of those things proactively arranged and lined up as you can. And then, ensure that there's good understanding of what's expected, by the folks that you have working for you. Just 1 month ago, I went over to one of our facilities that I had placed armed security support in, and I sat with an individual for the better part of an hour and made sure that person understood exactly what their job was at that facility, and more importantly, what their job was not. There a lot of bad things can happen at a facility that I don't want my armed security dealing with, because we have other things in place to deal with those things. And so when we got finished, I felt good, and I think the agent felt really good about what was expected of them in this role at this facility, and more importantly, or as importantly, what was not expected of them at this facility, and what we would deal with a different way. So it's a tough topic, but you do the best you can and do as much as you can proactively.
Well, your plate must be really full being the chief security officer. I mean, you just discussed how you sat down with an agent at a bank for an hour and make sure he understood what your standards were for him and what is not acceptable. And that's just probably what 10-20% of what your role is at U.S. Bank. Can you explain to us what a day looks like for you as a chief security officer at U.S. Bank? What does that look like? Is it pretty crazy?
Well, it certainly can be, right? I mean, I think anytime you're in the safety and security business, no 2 days are alike. Some days you're putting out multiple fires all over the place. Other days it's a little quieter and you're able to be a little bit more administratively focused. I think at the end of the day, it's about making sure that, your team is empowered and set up for success, right? Every day when I get up, it used to be the two things I would think about as I would drive into the office. Now it's the two things I think about as I'm walking down the stairs. And that is really number one, what am I going to do today to empower those that I have the privilege to lead? How am I going to motivate them today? In my humble view, it's leadership is certainly leadership of people is a privilege and not a right. Sometimes people think that it's an attendance award, that you get to now be the boss. Not true. Leadership is a privilege. And so, what am I going to do to empower, inspire those that I have the privilege to lead? That's number one. Number two, do the people that I have the privilege to lead, do they have the tools, the equipment, and the training that they need to do their job well? And you know what? Spend the rest of the day busying yourself answering those two questions. And then get up the next day and ask those same two questions to yourself. Because at the end of the day, it's not you, it is your team that is getting things done around here. So make sure that that team stays empowered, inspired, and make sure that they have the tools and the equipment that they need, because they're the ones doing it, not you.
Wow. Like I read in John Maxwell's book, everything rises and falls on leadership. And that's a great leadership 101 right there.
Oh, thanks. Yeah.
Great. Yeah. Lead from the front. I like how you put that. And you always, like in the military, everything's about the troops. You go in as NCO and above, and I was in the Marine Corps, the younger troops eat first and the officers and the NCOs eat last. Always take care of the guys that serve you, and you have to serve them back. And that's just, that should be a lesson learned in building any organization. You got to take care of your people and take care of you.
Yeah, 100%.
And I think we probably get lost in trying to, like you say, be that bodyguard. You get, lost, especially in LA, as a different animal out there in the EP world or protective world. And then you have the corporate organization, which is basically this organization. You're managing people. You have to be, if you're not a great manager, everything rises and falls on you when you get up in the morning. So yeah, thanks for touching on that. Mm-hmm. What do you see in 2021 being the biggest threats in the banking industry and domestically?
Yeah, well, certainly, obviously, I think in my industry, and not unlike a lot of other industries, I think that, the thing that I worry about the most on the physical side of things, of course, is an active shooter workplace violence incident, right? That's the thing that I worry about the most. Certainly on the other side of things, any type of cyber data information breach brings with it enormous consequences, reputational issues. So those are certainly, a couple of the big things that I think in 2021 we'll continue to face. I wonder, as COVID continues, and a vaccine comes online, that I hope anyway will alleviate some of the stress. But at the same time, I've told my team, let's not kid ourselves in thinking that when there's a vaccine in every Walmart and Target, coast to coast, that's not going to be some sort of magic. That's not going to be some sort of magic pill. We are still going to have a lot of COVID-related stress and activity and work that we're going to be dealing with well into 2021, and hopefully not, but perhaps even beyond. And so I think really for us, the challenges of COVID going into 2021, the stress that's going to create, the increased financial pressure on customers and on people, and how that impacts their interactions with the bank, certainly are something on our radar. I also think too that the election leading right up to the inaugural, and then if there's potentially conflict around the transition, we could see some additional protest and civil unrest related activity there as well, which certainly will could impact U.S. bank operations. So those are a couple of things that we're really paying attention to.
Yeah, how many banks are you responsible for in the United States? Because I know you guys have branches all over the country. That's a lot of banks.
Yeah, we've got several thousand banks, and we've got several thousand ATMs. We've got well over 400 non-retail facilities. We've got data centers that, of course, are probably from a regulatory standpoint, a safety and security standpoint, probably our highest priority facilities from an information security perspective. And so it's really important that we ensure that our physical security programs around all those facilities are robust, and that we're risk tiering them, and we're going back and we're making sure that those physical security programs are healthy. And where we have gaps or we identify needs, we're addressing those timely. And then certainly as incidents or other issues arise, those are being addressed rapidly as well. So it's a big footprint. We're in 25 states here in the United States. We're in 25 countries overseas. And so a lot going on. And it just gets back to it's so critical. You as a leader, you need that team. You need that team to feel empowered, inspired, motivated, support, feel like they're supported, give them the tools, the equipment they need. They'll go out there, they'll fight hard for you. They won't let you down. Just don't let them down.
Exactly. Almost like the Secret Service and the Marine Corps all over again.
Yeah.
Hey, what are the shifts in banking? You mentioned cyber. I know, is cyber a big threat indicator going in the future with all these foreign actors getting involved on, like U.S. elections and stuff? Is that also a big factor in the banking institutions too?
Yeah, and certainly I would defer to our Chief Information Security Officer for more detailed information. Yeah. That's more his role than mine. But I'll say this: as banking becomes more technological advanced, right? The brick and mortar side of it, maybe you see that footprint shrinking a little bit. You see the technology, the virtual space of banking expanding rapidly. Certainly that is where the increasing threat then would also, I think, be increasing, sort of concurrently to that growth. So that would be where I would place the threat of the future is going to be in that space. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. The IT is beyond me. It's way above my head. Yeah. I'll stick the EP stuff and protective services, but yeah, I don't even understand. Like my podcast people, I don't even understand how the coding they do, the magic and the creative content that they do is just way over my head. So like you say, leave it to the IT guy.
Yeah.
I think of anything else I could try to bring up. I know you have a limited time. You're very busy over there. Is there any advice you want to offer the generation coming into the protective services, executive protection programs? Any advice you want to give those guys to be successful in this industry?
Well, yeah, I do. I was a young man once, many, many, many years ago. And so I certainly appreciated the advice and the guidance that I got from folks that were veterans in the industry. I'd like to repay that kindness if I can. Be holistic in your approach, right? It's terrific if you go to the gym and you're fit and you hit a heavy bag 500 times a day. That's terrific. That's a hard skill. And if and when that ever becomes necessary in the course of doing your duties, then God bless you for being good at it, right? But you should be able to sit and talk about how the corporation makes money and be able to recite the corporation's values and ethics and mission statement and understand that and be able to talk about how you and your role and your team's role and your mission fits into that. Be holistic in your approach with a company. Understand the company's culture, right? The culture at Google is different than the culture at US Bank. Understand the differences there. Embrace those things about the culture, right? Really embrace the idea that we call it diversity of thought. And what I mean by that is you have all of these wonderful, diverse professionals from all backgrounds, and they come together and they converge on a problem together. And be open-minded to that, because you're going to see a lot of that in private sector company. It's very powerful. It's very good. Be a part of that. Really embrace the idea that you're not a bodyguard. You're a security professional, and you're a member of that corporation. You are a corporate professional within that organization. And by understanding that, by being educated and well-versed in how that corporation functions, and by being someone who embraces that diversity of thought, you don't go in there and just say, hey, I'm from the United States Secret Service. It's my way or the highway. No, don't do that. Don't do that. Go in there. That guy from that hero from the military, that person that is now in corporate security that maybe came from marketing or came from somewhere else. They've got great ideas too. So embrace that. Get together, everyone around the table, solve that thing collaboratively. Be that kind of a person, have that kind of reputation, that quiet yet thoughtful security professional with a holistic understanding of the organization that they're there to support, in partnership with all these other folks. You do that, I think you're going to set yourself up for a long and successful career in the private sector.
John, what would you say is the biggest personality trait and ability you look for in hiring your next protective services professional at US Bank? What are the values you look for in that personality?
Yeah, so it's somebody that I think will really do two things. Number one, someone that I think either already has a high corporate IQ or has the ability to attain that business acumen, because that's really, really important. And then someone who I think is going to be a good cultural fit in an intimate space with our C-suite. I have to have those two things. And that's why, unfortunately, you get a lot of people that are real high speed, low drag, and they come in and you're like, man, you are a hero. Thank you for your service. And I'm glad you're on our side, right? But I can't put them in our C-suite. I can't put them on a jet next to our chief security or a chief executive officer, because unfortunately, they don't either have the business acumen, the corporate sort of cultural IQ ability, or I'm nervous that they're not going to assimilate into the culture within the C-suite, because that is a small, intimate space. It takes years to create the trust in that space, and that trust can be destroyed in a moment. And so it's so precious.
Yeah, well said. I mean, I was actually a banker for WAMU Regional Bank. I was in charge of the Merchant Services Division, and 35 branches reported to me. And there's no way in the world I can integrate my Marine Corps mentality dealing with those customers. And like you said, it's very intimate. You're on that jet, and that CFO may be asking you, so Agent Bob, what did you think of the stock market crash that just happened? What's your thoughts? See, like you said, business acumen is so important. Those guys do ask you questions like they want to see what's up there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. You know, you know when they're going to be busy and when you just need to either bury your nose in your book or open your laptop. But at the same time, you have to be able to have a conversation with these folks. And let's face it, the language that just about all of them speak is business. And Absolutely. So you need to speak that language too.
Hey, I think that's a good place to wrap it up. I know you got to probably roll here in a minute, but this is John Shuman, the CSO of US Bank, and he wanted to take some time to share with our veterans, our military audience, and anybody else that is thinking about getting in the industry of protecting and protective services. And yeah, that's pretty much all I got for questions. And you have anything more you want to add, John, or you good?
No, again, my privilege to be here, Mark. Thank you for the invitation. To our veterans out there, thank you for your service. We really appreciate that. Our first responders, some of the other frontline heroes that keep us safe. It's truly my pleasure to try to give back a little bit. And obviously, you have my contact information. If anyone has additional questions, I'd be happy to come back on and speak again anytime. It'd be my pleasure. But I'm always open to someone calling me up, and I'll do everything I can to help somebody out.
All right, sir. Well, appreciate you and what you do over there, and for the customers at US Bank. And I will be in touch if anybody does reach out to me. I will see if it's okay to give John's contact information, and we'll take it from there. But have a great day, John, and have a great weekend. And I'm sure we'll be talking soon.
No, that's great. Have a great day.
Thank you, sir.
All right.